Welcome back to Rich Rodriguez, season by season. In the last few years under Coach Rod, winning the Big East was the goal and aspiration. But going into 2007, the Mountaineers had won 3 of the last 4 Big East titles. So winning the conference wasn't the goal or aspiration, it had become the standard. The new goal was to go to the national championship, and many fans in the Mountain State believed in 2007 that WVU had the team to do it. Like in 2006, the majority of WVU's offensive playmakers were back. The only major loss was leading receiver Brandon Miles, but Rodriguez and staff found a freshman eager to fill those shoes in Wes Lyons, who scored the Gold and Blue Spring Game's only touchdown.
Sure, I had a good time, and I feel that I showed the fans I can make a few plays, and show fans that I can compete out there.
The leading acquisition, however, would not arrive in Morgantown until fall camp, and it was a boost to an already loaded backfield. That came in the form of a 5-star running back from Fort Myers, Florida, named Noel Devine.
He looked real good. Him and all the other freshmen look real well. They've been picking stuff up throughout the summer, and it's shown.
I know his eyes were big, just like all the other young kids. But he tried hard, and he gave everything he can give. And you got to take it day by day with him.
Defensively, the key was to just improve. Many players on that side of the ball recognized that the high-octane WVU offense carried the team down the stretch in 2006. So the name of the game was taking the next step, especially in the secondary.
I think it was the biggest learning experience I've had since I've been here. We won a lot of games, but for us to win a lot of games last year and see that our defense was that terrible as far as in the back end, I think there's no more but for improvement.
With so many returners, West Virginia was still the darling of the Big East, and for the second season in a row was picked in the preseason to finish first in the conference by the media. The 3 teams that gave WVU the most trouble in 2006, Louisville, Rutgers, and South Florida, followed the Mountaineers at 2, 3, and 4 respectively. Cincinnati was picked 5th in its first season under Brian Kelly, and Pitt, UConn, and Syracuse rounded out the basement. Once again, West Virginia also received plenty of national attention and intrigue. The Mountaineers opened up the season ranked 3rd in the preseason AP Top 25 behind only USC and LSU. That broke a school record that was only 1 year old. WVU started the season in front of a sellout crowd against perennial MAC Power Western Michigan, but the Mountaineers had to overcome a little bit of opening day jitters. Up 7-0 in the first, Pat White found a wide-open Darius Raynaud who managed to book it 58 yards into WMU territory. But the Broncos forced a fumble and capitalized on a passing score 8 plays later to tie it up at 7. A White pass to Steve Slayton for 50 yards put the Mountaineers ahead, then a 38-yard rush by number 5 gave it some cushion. Another Steve Slayton score put the Broncos in the corral, and Noel Devine even reached the end zone late in a 62-24 opening day win.
Yeah, I felt a little bit. I did a little something. I did what I could for them, because they did what they could do for me. They stand up and cheered for me.
It was good to get those freshmen in there and get them, their first taste of college football, and they were big, bright-eyed, and I think they enjoyed it.
1-0 just like that, but things would get a little bit more challenging with a pair of road trips. First across the Mountain State for a rivalry game, and then out east for a border battle. Marshall came to play in WVU's first visit to Huntington in 92 years. A 38-yard touchdown pass from Bernard Morris to Darius Passmore helped the Herd to a 13-6 halftime lead. The Mountaineers tied up the game on its first possession of the second half with a 23-yard pass from Pat White to Darius Raynaud. White added a 20-yard touchdown run to give WVU the lead, and on the ensuing Marshall drive, Ryan Mundy recovered a fumble at midfield to break the back of the Herd attack. Slayton cruised in for a 2-yard score later in the drive, and Noel Devine added a pair of scores late to give WVU a 48-23 win running away over the Herd.
I think he might be a little bit more talented than me, than my freshman year. I think he has that ability to be better.
They're both talented players. Steve that's a bold statement from Steve. If he thinks so, then why not agree with it?
That bold statement was followed up by a bold performance, but the Mountaineers would have to wait for it. WVU's short week may have caused a slow start at Maryland. Both West Virginia and the Terps traded touchdowns, but then the old Gold and Blue couldn't get much going. Back-to-back trips to Maryland territory came up empty, but the defense did enough early to keep it tied. Steve Slayton finally found the end zone late in the second to put the Mountaineers up. Noel Devine's bold performance finally popped off after halftime. 2 breakaway runs in the third quarter set up Mountaineer touchdowns to wax the Turtles. He'd finished with 136 yards and 2 TDs to complement Slayton's 137 and his pair of end zone trips to hand West Virginia a 31-14 win.
Yeah, I think that's the advantage I have on Steve, my size. Me being so short, they'll not be able to see me, so I just hop behind my blocks, and when I see it, I take it.
They were telling me on the field, Maryland's defensive players, and they couldn't find it. They were losing him behind the offensive line. But we're not complaining one bit.
When you get in the game and have 5 carries and gain that many yards to score twice, I think that's kind of natural. You think that. The first thing I said to him when he scored the first time was, man, I need to play you more. That's the first thing I said to him on the phone. And he said, I know, Coach, I've been telling you that. So.
The next week against East Carolina, it was the secondary that threw the first punch. Morty Ivy picked off the Pirates on their first trip to West Virginia territory, and the Mountaineer offense sunk the ship from there. Darius Raynaud had the play of the day, making defender after defender miss and fall on a 69-yard sprint that set up an easy Steve Slayton touchdown. The offense performed as a committee, accumulating 599 total yards, but it was the defense that came into its own, pitching a shutout until garbage time in a 48-7 win over East Carolina.
In the locker room, you kind of could feel it before the game that we wanted to come out here and set a statement just by watching the Tulsa-Oklahoma game last night and the disrespect they're kind of giving us, throughout the nation, especially dropping us every week when we're winning. So we definitely want to come out and make a statement. I think we did it on defense.
It did feel good today to come out and play well, shut them out to that last drive, and hopefully it's gonna give us some good momentum going into Tampa next week.
All right, let's take stock here for a second. West Virginia was a solid 4-0. They held an AP top 5 ranking, and you can tell they were growing on both sides of the ball. Not a bad way to be as you wrap up the month of September. Now West Virginia was getting ready to open up Big East play against a South Florida team that had beaten them the year before, and it also had come into its own. There was a buzz in Tampa for the biggest crowd in USF's short football history, but unfortunately for the crowd, it took a while for the game to appear like a top 25 matchup. Both the Mountaineers and the Bulls combined for 7 consecutive drives that ended in a turnover that included a Pat White pick 6. Things would get worse in the second when Pat was injured on a first down pickup and West Virginia couldn't recover in Tampa, falling 21-13.
Exactly. We just felt we were closer and closer, and we needed that one spark, and we were just kind of, lucky. We were still in the game. Without that spark, we had no rhythm whatsoever, and it seemed like it was either a turnover or a negative yards play that just kept us from getting the drives going.
Not a great way to start out Big East play, but hey, it was still early in the season, and West Virginia still had 7 more opportunities to erase the memory of that game from the minds of college football fans. As for Pat White's injury, he had the right guy to make sure that wouldn't be a long-term issue.
Slayton's injury lingered and limited his participation in the Gator Bowl. Slayton and White are roommates, and Dr. Slayton has used his experience to help White heal more quickly. White has practiced all week and says he is not quite 100%, but that he expects to play. Coach Rod, on the other hand, has labeled White as day-to-day. Pat White says he would not have been in this position if Slayton did not tell him how he could best heal from his injury.
Because he prevented me from getting that bad. I guess he was my doctor at home. Made me keep it bent. I guess everything he didn't do, he just made me do. And I thank him for that.
Keep it moving. Yeah, and I think he's shown way more progression than I have when I had it. So that's definitely a positive thing for us.
The progress and movement were on full display in the Carrier Dome the next week. Pat White was WVU's leading rusher against Syracuse with 89 yards, but the star of the day was Owen Schmidt. The runaway beer truck found the end zone twice against the Orange and even got in on some special teams action. He launched a 27-yard punt to pin Cuse deep in its own territory. The defense also got on the board with a touchdown rumble by Keelan Dykes to contribute to a 55-14 beatdown of Syracuse.
I was like, I might never get another interception in my life, so I was like, I got to score with this. And like I've been saying last week, man, when we get a turnover, we got to do something with it.
Mountaineers got a bye week before wrapping up non-conference play against SEC cellar dweller Mississippi State. WVU dumped on the Bulldogs early and often, starting with the first play from scrimmage. Pat White took off for a 64-yard touchdown to get the Golden Ears going, and he kept it going. Back-to-back touchdown passes on consecutive drives dug the Maroon and White even deeper. Then Steve Slayton capped off the quarter with a rushing score of his own, his program record 43rd of his career. a quick 28-0 lead in what would end up being a 38-13 beatdown of MSU.
It's very special, even just especially do it at home. I mean, to have all the fans. I mean, that's where you're gonna get the most support is at home, and I'm happy to do it.
Yeah, nice for him because he's not about that, and our team's not about individual records. But nonetheless, it's good to be in the books, and I hope that's not the last one for sure.
Rutgers came in advertised as a potential giant killer for WVU after upsetting the second-ranked team in the country the previous week. Mountaineers made sure they never found the end zone, and Steve Slayton added 3 more scores to his rising career rushing scoring record in a 31-3 smackdown. With that win, things were looking up for WVU. USF had lost its previous 2 games, so the Mountaineers were back in control of their own destiny for a conference title and a BCS bid. Only UConn remained ahead of West Virginia, and they'd be coming to Morgantown on Thanksgiving weekend. In order to stay in the Big East and BCS title hunt, West Virginia would have to take down the team that took them out of those hunts in 2006. The Louisville Cardinals would enter a classic Morgantown atmosphere in the teeth of the Gold Rush. In his final meeting with the Mountaineers, Brian Brohm would spend a good chunk of the game on his back, being sacked 4 times early by the West Virginia defense. Pat White managed to find one of his favorite targets repeatedly early on, 2 touchdowns to Darius Reynaud that would put the Cards in a 2-score hole that remained through late in the 3rd quarter. But Louisville wouldn't say quit. Brohm engineered a comeback that registered 17 straight points to tie up the game at 31 with 3 minutes to play. But unlike the classic 2 seasons before, this one would not need extra time. Pat took off on a 50-yard touchdown run with less than 2 minutes to play to clip the Cardinals' wings in a 38-31 win.
As I told the team, I'd rather win ugly than lose pretty, but we certainly made enough mistakes today to last a whole season. But we still hung in there, and they made some plays, and they came to win. And I think our team understands that we're going to take a good shot from everybody.
The next week at nationally ranked Cincinnati, Pat White unleashed an offensive attack, amassing 295 yards on the ground and through the air. Owen Schmidt and Steve Slayton also found the end zone to put WVU up 28-10 in the 4th quarter. But after a UC score, a Pat White fumble gave the home team another chance, and the Bearcats capitalized to put WVU's lead at just 5. Boogie Allen grabbed the onside kick, and West Virginia escaped the Queen City with a 28-23 win.
Pat was a true warrior. I mean, he's obviously felt bad about the way the game ended, but at the same time, any win's a good win. And we won. Now we get to play for a Big East championship against a very good UConn team at our place, and I told the team we got to have a great week, and I think they will.
The win catapulted WVU into the top 3 of the BCS standings. Many fans across the Mountain States started researching trips to New Orleans for January in hopes of competing for a national title. But before that, the Mountaineers would have to win the Big East, and UConn still remained ahead in the league standings. In a rare occurrence for the league, it was a winner-take-all game for BCS rights. This was not a new phenomenon for West Virginia. You may remember in 2004 that West Virginia faced a similar situation against another team from New England, Boston College, and fell short. So many WVU fans were praying that Thanksgiving weekend, WVU would seal the deal. 60,000 strong in Milan Puskar Stadium and an ABC network audience greeted the de facto Big East championship. After the Huskies struck first, Pat White struck twice. First on a 3-yard rush to tie up the game, then on a slant pattern to Darius Reynaud to take the lead. The Mountaineers led 24-14 at the half, but kicked it into high gear in the second half. Pat used his legs once again to open the 3rd quarter, weaving his way 24 yards into the end zone. Then Noel Devine took off for a 25-yard rush of his own. Both White and Devine had 100-plus yard rushing days, and the defense got on the board with a fumble recovery in the end zone in a 66-21 beatdown.
It's nothing against Connecticut. It's not like we're trying to be the Patriots and run the score up on them, but we got something to prove to the Pools and the rest of the country. So, we had to go out and do what we had to do.
The shot at playing for a national title was made possible by LSU's loss Friday night. The Mountaineers were in their hotel at the time and celebrated accordingly.
Everybody ran out of their hotel room, up and down the hallways for about 5 minutes. Somebody stripped naked and did it too. So, let's put it like that. We had a streaker.
So it all comes down to this, the backyard brawl next Saturday night. A win, and the Mountaineers should be headed to the national championship game.
And Scott Grayson was right. LSU's loss to Arkansas vaulted West Virginia to number 2 in the BCS standings. It looked like a slam dunk, but with WVU and top-ranked Missouri both playing the final week of the season, it wasn't a sure thing. The number 2 ranking was a precarious position for any team in college football in 2007. In 6 of the previous 8 weeks, the second-ranked team in the country lost, and 5 of those times it came against an unranked team. Unfortunately, for the 100th playing of the Backyard Brawl, West Virginia was not immune to that curse.
It was senior night. 18 players took Mountaineer Field for the final time. Unfortunately, it was not the storybook ending they were hoping for. The Mountaineers' opening drive was stopped a couple of yards short of the end zone. They settled for a field goal attempt. The harsh angle, though, gave Pat McAfee problems, and he missed the chip shot. Later in the first half, McAfee had another shot at putting 3 points on the board, but like a golfer, he got a case of the shanks, and this attempt just missed wide right. To make matters worse, Pat White was again knocked out of the game with an injury late in the first half. Jarrett Brown took over and did score the game's first touchdown. That gave WVU a 7-0 lead. But Pitt responded, scoring 13 unanswered points. Turnovers caused the Mountaineers problems in the second half. In fact, they only ran 4 offensive plays in the third quarter. White returned to the game in the fourth quarter, trying for more heroics. Needing a touchdown for the win on fourth down, White overthrew West Lyons, and reality began to set in. No national championship game. Pitt, a 28-point underdog, beat WVU and spoiled what could have been in Morgantown.
Picked a bad time to play our worst game offensively in years. But I'm still proud of them. They still won the championship and still going to the BCS Bowl. But sometimes life throws a little adversity, and we're going to have to respond from it.
The 100th Backyard Brawl would go down as one of the biggest upsets in college football history and the darkest moment for the West Virginia University football program. The next day, the Mountaineers accepted a bid to the Fiesta Bowl to take on Oklahoma, but Rich Rodriguez would not be joining them there. 2 weeks before the game, he resigned as WVU's head coach to accept the same job at Michigan. WVU would go on to beat Oklahoma in the Fiesta Bowl 48-28. But over time, those wounds became scabs, and those scabs became even smaller scars. WVU found success in the Big East and in the Big 12, and Rodriguez would find successes at Michigan, Arizona, and Jacksonville State in the intervening 17 seasons. In December of 2024, the homegrown coaching talent finally came back to the mountains. It proved that the 2007 season was not the final chapter, it was just the most recent chapter in a book that hadn't been written in a while. The Mountaineers and Coach Rod, though, are ready to pick the pen back up.
I have thought about this moment, you know. I get to coach at the greatest university in this country. I get to live in the greatest state in the union. And more importantly, I get to be around the greatest people that you could be around. Thank you very much. Let's go Mountaineers.